Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Spincast. Today, we're back on the topic of collegiate esports. We're going to dive into what this scene looks like from the perspective of the director of esports and gaming at Texas Wesleyan, EUGENE. So, EUGENE, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us how you got into esports. You can go all the way from the beginning. When did you start playing games? When did you realize you have those passions for esports, and how did that take you to being the director at Texas Wesleyan?
Yeah, so thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. My name's EUGENE. Like Kyle said, I'm the director of esports and gaming at Texas Wesleyan University. And my my gaming story started before esports was a thing. I'm one of the older directors that I know at a program. I started playing video games in the early 1980s, back on Commodore 64, at Atari, ColecoVision. I remember when the Nintendo first came out, I've just played games my whole life, and I still play now. Later on tonight, me, my wife, and a couple friends are going to play World of Warcraft. It's always just been a part of the fabric of my life. And honestly, I've always worked alongside gaming through my career in higher education. I started working in higher education in the early 2000s, and was always trying to find ways to bring students together through a shared passion of esports gaming, just like stuff that people love. Get to make connections, and kind of build a community. But it really wasn't until, I guess, 2017, when I was working at Texas Wesleyan University. I was an assistant dean of students for student engagement. I was over 4 different departments on our campus. My boss and I had an honest conversation about doing something new and something fresh. And although I had been connected with gaming for my whole life and I watched esports, I wasn't thinking, we should make an esports program. But then I started seeing some of the big programs, some of the Robert Morris, University of California, Irvine, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, wait a minute. This could be a great way to bridge the getting students involved that maybe aren't always involved on campus, but also getting them to do something that they love in a way that's a pathway to a degree, pathway to a career. So we pitched our program in 2017, got approved in January of 2018, and my job and my schedule at work changed pretty dramatically from then on. So I'm very happy, and I feel lucky to be doing what I'm doing. But that's kind of the most condensed version of that story, really, I can give you.
Awesome. Sounds like a great path. I absolutely love just seeing those passions become a job, right? I know we talked a little bit, when you can take a passion and apply it to your job,
Yeah.
it's awesome. Waking up every day and like, hey, I'm just gonna hop on it and get to work. There's no it's Monday morning.
No, exactly. And it was a big personal win for me too.
Yeah.
Having my mom say my entire life, "Hey, stop playing video games," and then my job becoming this, calling my wife and saying, "Hey, I got the job," and then call my mom like, "Hey, remember what you used to tell me? Job, I can
Exactly.
do this now, Mom."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's so many opportunities and jobs in esports,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
great to see, it's starting at the collegiate level, right? Getting coursework, degrees, and playing, and then taking those skills to the next level. So that kind of leads into my next question. What does the program at Texas Wesleyan look like? So, what kind of university support? You touched on it a little bit. What does that look like? How does the program kind of run? So kind of just get into the details of the program in any unique fashions at Texas Wesleyan.
Okay. So we are a varsity program. We are a department on our campus. I report to our vice president of student affairs. My full-time job is esports and gaming. We have a gaming spaces for our competitive team set up on campus. We have scholarships for some of our players. But the best way to describe the program itself, and I know a lot of my players roll their eyes when I start talking about this, but we define our program as being based on the 4 C's: competition, creation, community, and career. So for competition, we have 5 varsity teams. We started doing team workouts with the teams last year, but all the teams have practices, scrimmages, competitions. We do grade checks, academic progress checks with them. They have GPA requirements, behavioral agreements. We try to pattern it like an athletic program, a much smaller athletic program because we're a smaller school. But that's the competition portion. The creation, we just kind of tweaked a lot in the past 6 months, honestly. Initially, we were very focused on Twitch, streaming. Let's get streamers. Let's do that. But then we saw not a lot of our students were interested in doing that, but a lot of them were interested in doing stuff more produced content, like for YouTube, for example. So we've been shifting a little bit to that, trying to pivot into podcasts a bit more and then some produced content. But this is where it really starts to get into like the core of what our program is about. The competition hits on this too, but what are you doing right now in college in the content creation team that's going to help you get ready for a career later on? What are the skills that you're picking up, the things that you love doing that you're getting to do more right now that you can do as a career? And
Mm-hmm.
that really segues into the community piece as well. We have several student organizations on our campus that are connected to our program. The Wesleyan Adventurers League, a Dungeons and Dragons tabletop role-playing game group, Tex West FGC, the fighting game community, and it's all about bringing people together. What we like to talk about on our campus is everybody's a geek about something. Being a geek isn't about what you love, it's about how you love it. So how can we have pockets of community on campus where if a new student or a returning student that maybe isn't as involved hears people talking about something like, oh, you guys play Animal Crossing? You guys
Mm-hmm.
play Overwatch? And getting
Mm-hmm.
to pull them into the fold, getting to have those connections, have that community, have that support there. Um, and then the career part is what's around kind of all that. I kind of started hitting on it a bit with the content creation, but we want our program to be an incredible experience where students learn while they're here, but the ultimate win for us is them being career ready, getting jobs out of college, and 5, 10 years after graduating, being able to look back and say, because of my experience in the Texas Wesleyan Esports and Gaming program, I learned XYZ that helped give me these opportunities for a job and a career in the
Mm-hmm.
future. So that's kind
Yeah.
of in a nutshell what we're about. We're trying not to just let learning happen to happen, but
Mm-hmm.
create intentional structures for guided learning to happen. And the students get a really, really big voice in what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we're also very fortunate in the location that we're at. We're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're one of the smaller universities in that area. We have around 2,000 students. But we're also right next to Mavs Gaming, Complexity Gaming, Team Envious, a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
different esports companies outside of organizations as well. So trying to connect our students, our program, and our students to them to help get some of that experiential learning and just fun stuff as well in this vibrant esports scene in the Dallas-Fort Worth
Mm-hmm.
area.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know Dallas is one of those microcosms of
Oh
esports. You know,
yeah.
you see them in different bigger cities across the nation, but Dallas is definitely one of those bigger ones. If not top three, I think it's really up there. But side note, but absolutely love those four C's, right? And really
Mhm.
focusing on, okay, what's the next step for students, right? Because that's, what we kind of look like, taking your passions and these skills that you're developing from all of them, right? When you're competitive
Mhm.
gaming, you're strategizing, you're problem solving,
Mhm.
you're under high stress, working under low time, in real time with real time communications, team synergy, all that stuff. You don't really see those kind of grouping of skills except in military. And we all know the
Yeah.
military vets are insanely good at those, and so are esports. A little bit obviously
Mhm.
different, the physical aspect of it, but you have even more of a mental thing, the mental stress, because esports can facilitate and um, the games are more complex, right? I mean, obviously in real life you can only do
Mhm.
so much. In
Mhm.
games you have magic and all that kind of great stuff. So all those skills that you can take, bundle, and apply to the workforce
Yeah.
leads to long-term success for the players as they go to the next step of their life. So absolutely love those four C's. I think really are good encompassing points for everything. So kind of moving into that. Explain what some of those careers looks like, right? Because you touched on it a little bit, but what careers do you help facilitate with these students in your program?
So the way we try to approach it, like I said, our school is small. We're around
Mm-hmm.
2,000 students, and actually our university tagline is "Smaller, Smarter." We're very, very focused on individual attention. So it isn't so much a we're going to do these things for you. It's what are you interested in, and
Mm-hmm.
how can we find a way to connect you with what makes sense for you. So one big thing that we started this year, we started doing it a bit more focused with one of our teams, but we're there's about 20 or so students that were doing it this year. We have around 55 students in the program right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it's a little bit lower because about 5 just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Gallup organization. They have a thing. It's been called Strengths Finder, Strengths Quest, Clifton Strengths. It's a self-assessment where you take it. It takes about 30 minutes to take, and it
Mm-hmm.
gives you what your top 5 strengths are. We have our students take that. I'm trained as a facilitator and helping students unlock their potential with Strengths
Mm-hmm.
Quest.
Yeah.
Um, so getting them, okay, so here are your strengths. Not only how does this fit into your role on this team or in the content creation team or as a student, but how does it look as far as what you want to do for a career? So you want to
Mm-hmm.
major in this, your passions are this, and these are your strengths. How
Mm-hmm.
can we close that circle a bit more so there's more overlap? Or how can we, it's already perfectly lined up, but maybe you want to look at this kind of stuff, or maybe you're already looking at the right stuff. How can we connect you with not even just some of the esports organizations, but like there's some recruiters that our university works for, like let's get you some mock interviews with them, or let's get you
Mm-hmm.
some job shadowing opportunities in the field that you want. So it isn't really as and I don't say this in a mean way, but it isn't really as prescriptive as we're going to do these definite things with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, what are your interests, where are your passions, and how can we help you find your spot through that?
Yeah, 100%. Love it. I love that individualized approach because esports
Mhm.
is so broad. Like we touched on it, we
Yeah.
talked about it before the podcast. It's you can almost take any profession and tag esports
Hmm.
to it, or even take your past experience in esports and apply it to something that's closely related, right? Like first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is software development, right?
Yeah.
Game development. Those two fields are extremely close. They're very close
Hmm.
parallels. So it's like it's a very easy step to step over and find somewhere to apply your skills. So absolutely love it. There was an interesting point that keeps popping in my mind that you made. You're the director of esports and gaming, and you talked about community
Hmm.
a little bit. So talk to us about kind of like the differences between those and how you try to be inclusive to both esports and gaming, because there are kind of two different worlds, and just playing games and
Oh, they
then the
are. Yeah.
esports training. So talk to the
Mhm.
differences to those, but also how you're bringing them together at Texas Wesleyan.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, in the vein of transparency, one of the biggest mistakes that I made early on was, this is an esports program. We're going to have teams. We're going to compete. Esports, 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 esports. But some conversations with students that were interested in the program but weren't interested in the specific esports part of it
Mm-hmm.
had me kind of pivot my thinking a little bit. And the example that I've given a lot of people is this, and this can work for however many students you have on your campus. But like, okay, so we have this many students on our campus.
Mm-hmm.
Based on some data that we have, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I apologize. But like the Pew Institute data of people traditionally college aged, how many of them play video games? It's about 84%. That counts mobile games, console games, PC games. So that student population goes down to maybe here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how many of them play the five specific titles that we have teams for? Then it goes down to here.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them want to play competitively and have the skill and time to play competitively? It goes down to like here maybe.
Just a little bit of
So
a hair.
no, exactly. So we're doing a
Yep.
disservice to our community and to our students if we just say this is just what we're about. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you, Kyle, the amount of times that I talked to students on campus and they were fired up and they were like, "Oh, we have an esports program. That's amazing. Can I come by and talk to you?" And it's like, "Yeah." And some students would walk in and see our students that were playing with their headsets on, like, "Oh, blah 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 blah, move over there," and they would
Yeah.
walk in and be like, "Yes." But a lot of them would be like, "This is not what I do."
Exactly.
So we don't want to do a disservice to the students that want that, but we have to be realistic to know that being a gamer isn't a one size fits all definition.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you a really good example, especially in the current landscape, our Wesleyan Adventurers Guild that we have. It's a new student organization this past year, and I know a lot of schools have clubs or organizations based on D&D and stuff, but it's new for our campus.
Mm-hmm.
They officially became an org mid to late fall, and on a campus of 2,000 students for a new org to start with 20 to 25 was really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And they have 7 or 8 groups that are just playing all the time. Some of them are people that have never played D&D before. Some of them are people that have played D&D their whole life. But what I love about this group specifically is they bridge the gap with our competitive players of like, hey, like, teach us how to play your game. Want to learn more about that, but also come play this with us.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to again give people their own platform to stand on that they can be proud of, but also how can we, like, you don't want to cross the streams in a Ghostbuster setting, but how can we cross the streams of like, how can we like cross pollinate and like, hey, here's a chance for you to explain your stuff to them, but come check their stuff out as well. So again,
Exactly.
it's trying to be open as possible and make it an inclusive community for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's so much, and even just looking at just gaming and esports, I think does a
Hmm.
disservice in itself. Is there's so much, there's a wide spectrum there, right?
Hmm.
And I think we both have that exact same mindset of like we have to include all of that spectrum because I've played split screen Halo with my friends before. Well, that's gaming,
Oh
right? I
yeah.
used to play competitive Siege too. Well, that's gaming too, right?
Hmm.
Some are more esports than others, but like video games and esports is all together, and having that entire community really come together. And like you said, hey, I'm going to play this game, learn this game with my friends tonight, and then they're going to come play
Hmm.
the game that I play more. It's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
beautiful because you get so much more exposure and you can develop different skills, you can expand
Hmm.
your knowledge, and really have that unique skill set that's so applicable to what we were talking about earlier as careers, right?
Absolutely.
um, and really start to just become this very unique, very what's the word? Something that a potential candidate for these employers that really like, hey, I want this person, I
Yeah,
want
a
this
hot
person.
prospect to be. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So yeah, absolutely love it. So shifting gears a little bit to that more esports side. So for those
Mhm.
listeners out there that are interested in this hyper competitive esports in collegiate, what does a typical
Mhm.
practice day look like? How do you approach training? You touch on it a little bit, but expand on it. What does that practice day look like? Is it scrimming, VODs? Like how much time goes into both of those and everything else that you guys do at Texas Wesleyan?
Yeah, okay. So it looks a little bit different from team to team, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, I'll give you our Overwatch team as an example. In addition to the players on the team and me, we have a program manager that helps directly with facilitating scrimmages and helping with the VOD reviews. But we also work with and again, we're fortunate with our location, a group called the Esports Performance Academy. There's some professional coaches that work with a
Mm-hmm.
variety of games, Overwatch, League of Legends. They're starting to do some Valorant stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I guess let me start at the beginning. We have them do some individual coaching with the students to start the year off,
Yeah.
and then build out a plan with them. And then with just the team, it's the captain, the program manager building out, okay, so here's the stuff that we're going to work on this week. Here are the maps we're going to do, all that kind of stuff. So throughout a typical week, on the Monday, me, the captain, the program manager set the schedule for the week, the details of the schedule for the week. Then we have a scrimmage that night. Well, Monday in the spring, we had a VOD review that night. And when we lay out the plan to the rest of the folks, here's what we're looking at in VODs tonight. Do the VOD. Here's what we're looking at for the rest of the week. Tuesdays were team workouts. Wednesdays, we'd have another meeting with me, the program manager, the captain, and two other team leaders where we'd say, okay, so we know what we're working on this week. What specific stuff do we want to try tonight in scrims?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else would show up. We'd go through those scrims. Thursday was a day off. Friday was another workout day and was a day of scrims. Saturday was a day off, and then Sunday was matches. Um, so it's a lot more structured in that respect than, for example, our FIFA team, which is our
Mm-hmm.
most successful team right now. We've competed 4 different semesters. We got first place, won the championship. We got second place first semester, championship second semester, second place the third semester, and we were undefeated before all the COVID stuff
Before
happened.
everything got shut
Semester.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But those practices are a lot more, okay, we're going to get in. It's on PC, so we use the same space as the other teams. It's just
Mm-hmm.
scheduled staggered.
Mm-hmm.
Get in, and you're going to play matches. But today, based on what you need to work on, you need to pass 15 times in the box before you take a shot. For you, what you need to work on, no crosses. You can only set up tap-in goals, and that's it. We go
Okay.
through and do that stuff where they scrimmage against each other, but then we record it, and then we break that down later on. And that's the prep we do kind of 2 or 3 times, pending their schedules, because a lot of them are student athletes actually on our soccer team.
Yeah.
Pending their schedule, it's 2 to 3 practices a week. It's like, hey, we're going to have 3 times, but make at least 2 of them. And then we have the matches on Thursday nights. So it's very focused on, okay, we're going to review, and we're going to come up with a new game plan. But how detailed that looks different based on the teams.
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely love that approach because kind of something that I always focus on, and you definitely do too, based on that response there, is that you have to be prepared outside of the game just as much
Mm-hmm.
as you prepare inside of the game, right? So inside of the game, scrimmaging, playing, ranked, online,
Mm-hmm.
skill games, whatever that may be, depending on the game. And then outside of the game, VOD review,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you get right sleep, right? Make
Oh
sure
yeah.
that you're healthy, that kind of stuff. And then analysis, team meetings, all that kind of stuff. And then it sounds like you guys have that beautiful support program where you have yourself and team managers and outside coaches that can come in and bring that game plan to fruition,
Mm-hmm.
which is something obviously not every university has, that don't have that varsity athletic
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
Which it's growing definitely, but I would love to see that more in the coming years everywhere in the United
Oh, for sure,
States.
for sure. One thing I'll
Uh,
say that
yeah.
was really cool for us to see this year, and I'm going to go back to the Overwatch team specifically. I mentioned the Strengths Quest, Clifton Strengths thing earlier. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
One of our team leaders and our captain would butt heads a lot. And it was a lot of individual conversations, and like they knew that they were both trying to make the team better. They just saw things very, very differently.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do the timing of this on purpose, but we ended up taking the Clifton Strengths thing a couple weeks into the spring semester, and we saw that their strengths, one of them was a lot more action oriented, and one of them was a lot more analytical and planning oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting down with them and explaining that got them both to, for the first time after several conversations, be like, oh, okay, so no, when you're saying, hey, let's talk about it more, you're not trying to undercut my point. That's what you're going to do no matter what's being said. And
Mm-hmm.
the other person was like, and when you're like, let's go, 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 you want to try it and then reevaluate it. You don't want to get too caught in the weeds before we start. And then that just helped things. It wasn't perfect after that, but that helped things dramatically before we even got into any activities or anything. Just the conversation as a group about that helped a lot.
Yeah, absolutely love
So-
it. Having those starting points to grow positively, right? Because nothing happens overnight, like you said. It's not like you can snap your fingers to get a magical wand or whatever. But setting that positive pathway to growth and improvement, you're going to see success. It might take a week or a month, but you're going to get there, right? As long as you take those founding steps. Absolutely love it. I do unfortunately only have time for one more question before we do have to wrap up. Advice. Yeah, for sure. Advice for high school students, right? So a lot of the listeners out there are high school students that, they want to get to the next level. They have these passions in gaming and esports, but they're not quite sure what to do with it, right? How do I take my skill set and apply it to the next level? So what advice would you have for them to help them stay on track as they look to expand their skill set into the next level, which is for high school students, obviously, collegiate esports?
I would say some of it hits on what we've talked about a little bit. And one of the points that I mentioned, but you framed really well, it's about in-game and out-of-game. And I've spoke to a lot of different directors and coaches about this as well. Your skill level is important. Your skill level is extremely important. But really, programs are going to help you get better at that. How are you as a communicator? How are you as a teammate? How toxic are you? Everybody's toxic on some level. For some people, that toxicity is just, and for some, it's throwing stuff. And how do you respond when you're being told, no, you can't? That thing that you always do that lets you win games, you're not doing that anymore because that's not how we play. How do you respond to that? So understanding and knowing what your needs are and how you impact the team, to me, is more important than how high your skill rating is. Now, obviously, there's a ceiling that you probably need to be at for most programs, but we've had some very, very good students that we've talked to, some very, very good players of games. We had one who's a top 500 Overwatch player on our team, and he was amazing. But his behavior wasn't in line with the expectations for the program, so he isn't on our team anymore. I think from the recruits that I've talked to, too few of them look at that as being as important a thing, because I've talked to some that have literally told me, but my SR is, or my ELO is, like, so why does that matter? It's like, no, it matters a lot. It matters a whole lot. So that behavior piece, how are you communicating? Are you, when your teammate makes a mistake? Not that you need to be like, oh, everything's great, but how are you impacting those around you? That's the biggest thing for me that I would suggest people look at.
For sure. And like you were saying, like, bad things are going to happen. You're going to lose. You're going to lose rounds. Negative things happen. There's going to be a negative emotion or behavior, but grow from it, right? Learn from it. Use it as a learning point instead of being like, just get toxic and mad and call people bad names and hurt someone. Like, obviously, we don't want that. But, and another point, one last point I wanted to make is that recruiting aspect, right? A lot of players don't realize that, like, we're recruiting you as a individual, right? And that's encompassing. That's your behavior, that's your grades, that's your mentality. It's not just your ELO or your KD or your SR or whatever the measurement is for whatever game you play. It's not just your stats. It's the encompassing holistic approach. Like you said, we're going to recruit the best person for the program, not the best rating, because that's obviously a big measure of success, is that they have to operate well within the team.
Exactly.
So yeah, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. So Eugene, thank you so much for joining us. Real quickly, tell us where we can find you if we want to get into contact with you to have any questions about Texas Wesleyan, more in depth than what we covered today. Obviously, where can we find Texas Wesleyan Esports as well?
If you want to reach out to our program via email, esports@txwes.edu is our direct email address. And then on social media, it's pretty much across the board, TXWES_esports for our Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. So
Awesome,
reach out.
awesome.
Love to talk.
Yep. Always feel free to reach out to anybody. That's the beautiful thing about the esports community and the gaming community, is that if you reach out to us, we're going to reciprocate, especially in like the director business roles. We love to talk and hear from all the listeners and people that want to learn more about what we do. So everyone out there, stay healthy and stay happy in these very difficult times with the current pandemic, and ultimately stay plugged in.